Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable Minister, Your Excellencies, I'm honored to be the country rapporteur for the Republic of Korea and to welcome the high-level delegation of the Republic to the 88th session of the CEDAW Committee. This is indeed an inflection point in the history of the Republic of Korea and the world. We are at the cusp of a digital revolution led in part by the Republic of Korea. Just last month, South Korea held its 22nd general election. The election opens a new window of opportunity to rise to new heights of global leadership. Unlocking women's full and equal participation in the political economy and the digital economy can only spur the Republic of Korea's growth as a global power. On a deeply personal note, I was proud to be invited as the keynote speaker to the celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Republic of Korea's Constitutional Court in August of 2023. In fact, you have an ancient history of constitutionalism dating back from the Chosun dynasty. The Constitution's Article 6 enshrines that international treaties, including the CEDAW, shall have the same force and effect of law as domestic laws of the Republic of Korea. Under this constitutional provision, the CEDAW is directly applicable by the Constitutional Court. I note that the Korean Constitutional Court frequently is in line with the CEDAW. In fact, I have perused the entirety of the Constitutional Court's jurisprudence. I highlight two cases. The Constitutional Court invalidated the Hoju system or male head of household system, but I note that the Civil Act, Article 78(1), still requires children to use their father's family name. What is the status of the bill that has been introduced to amend the law? Would you also consider removing the reservation on Article 16(1)(g) of the CEDAW on the right to choose a family name? I go on to the second case. The criminalization of abortion was ruled unconstitutional by the Constitutional Court in April of 2019. However, the state party has yet to make substantial changes that would allow for safe abortion access and the coverage of abortion by the National Health Insurance. Furthermore, as you know, Your Excellencies, there are a plethora of bills proposed in relation to the court's ruling. What is the status of these bills, these pending bills? I go on to anti-discrimination, which is the bedrock of the CEDAW, which embodies formal and substantive equality and outlaws both direct and indirect discrimination. The Republic of Korea has a strong anti-discrimination provision in Article 11 of the Constitution. Yet, as you know, there's a striking absence of an anti-discrimination law that prohibits both de jure and de facto discrimination. Article 11 of the Constitution states that there shall be no discrimination in political, economic, social, or cultural life on account of sex, religion, or social status. When will the Republic draft an intersectional anti-discrimination law that will realize the full promise of the Republic of Korea's Constitution? I will highlight a few key de jure discriminatory provisions. As was mentioned by the Human Rights Commission, the national machinery for women is foundational to the rule of law. Would you consider rescinding the proposed law to revise the Government Organization Act to dismantle the Gender Equality Ministry? I understand, in conversation with Your Excellencies, that there are deliberations to integrate the Gender Ministry with the Ministry of Social Welfare as a way of expanding its scope. We would like more information on that. I go on to the criminal justice reform. Despite calls for change, Article 297 of the Criminal Act still requires violence or intimidation for a rape conviction. Will you adopt the proposals to redefine rape law and to include affirmative consent, such as free and voluntary consent, in the rape law? As the law stands, victims of sexual harassment might be doubly victimized as they are threatened with penalties for so-called false accusations of sexual abuse. This has not only stoked gender wars, but can erode women's access to justice. I go on to now what I call the de jure forms of equality that are key to the CEDAW's full actualization in the Republic of Korea. Anti-feminist rhetoric seems to have sparked a popular narrative weaponizing feminism, which is in turn spawning a harmful youth cultural moment on reverse feminism, which also threatens to reverse prior gains and engender anti-feminist hate speech both online and offline. In fact, this rhetoric has spilled over into lawmaking. The Seoul Guidelines on Maternity in 2019, as you well know, called for pregnant women to cook meals for their husbands for up to 3 days before going to hospital. How can we create a more gender-equal national narrative? How can you revise harmful narratives with positive rhetoric, both on the CEDAW and on feminism? How can you interpret Article 36 of the Constitution on the protection of motherhood to include shared rights of parenting? How can you shift national narrative arc towards gender justice? I go on finally to the Women, Peace and Security agenda. The Republic of Korea's third National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security has as its main focus sexual violence. However, the 1325 agenda and the General Recommendation 30 of the CEDAW Committee are much broader than just conflict-related sexual violence. It calls for leadership of women in national, regional, and global security. Given the growing spectrum of security challenges and increasing proliferation of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles in the region, how are women involved in security in counter-missile strategy? As the shadow of nuclear weapons becomes a force multiplier geopolitically and the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons is at stake, how are women engaged in the NPT treaty? On November 23rd, the Seoul High Court issued a landmark decision redefining the theory of customary international law and ruled on reparations for each of the 16 so-called comfort women. This is indeed a landmark case, both for South Korea and for the world. But South Korea too has obligations by the comfort women. The budget to support the victims of sexual slavery must be included within the National Action Plan. My question also pertains to the revision of textbooks curricula and to memorializing the accurate narrative arc, both historic and current, regarding the situation of comfort women. The history of sexual slavery is part of a painful global reckoning. At the same time, your educational system, Your Excellencies, is a revered educational system. How can you use the educational system as a way to addressing this painful history in the world? What is the State Party's concrete plan to pass the bill on protection support and commemorative projects for the victims of military sexual slavery? And finally, Excellencies, in October 2022, the Supreme Court ruled on reparations for the US military camp town comfort women. What is the status of the implementation of the court decision? I look forward to a constructive dialogue with the distinguished delegation, as well as a conversation that will spur the growth of the Republic of Korea as a model for the rest of the world. Thank you.